she fights crime.
Yeah.
Welcome to We Are Libertarians here on the Chris Spangle Show. My name is Chris Spangle. Thank you so much for joining us. And I have a general idea of what I want to talk about this episode, but if the pregame is anything like the show, we're going to cover a lot of topics, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Two of my favorite people are here, and Harry. Well, first let's introduce Harry. Harry, how are you today?
Going good. It's a beautiful day outside. I want to be outside grilling meat, but I'm actually stuck in here with you.
I know. I wish I could grill meat, but my grill got stolen. I had a big green egg, the Cadillac of grills that I got as a present for my wedding, and some criminals got into my garage because we left the car unlocked and they got my garage door opener.
So you gave it to them.
Yeah, right. So we made a donation of that in the toolbox, but you know, I got the insurance payment that didn't cover enough to buy the new grill, but it's okay.
They didn't respect the grill enough to see. That's what
and they threw it in the back end of their truck because there was ring footage, and they had to have broken it.
Probably need separate insurance like they have like for collector cars, but for grills, because some of our grills are expensive and the char that we put inside them should be respected. I'm actually planning on grilling this weekend, so I've got 2 slabs of ribs, I've got a family pack of thighs I'm gonna go do.
Nice.
And then I think that's about it, because I need to get back up into good
no sides, right?
What?
No sides.
If
straight
I'm
meat.
going to do sides, my wife will do sides, and if she doesn't want to do sides, we just have meat. And
That's how it used to be at my house. And then I got married. Now I have to have sides. No, just straight meat. All right. Well, Kat, hello. You were a returning guest. You've been on. Was it once? Was it It was after the Dobbs decision.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But you haven't been on a second time.
I
right?
haven't.
Okay, but I'm very glad that you're here, and your podcast co-host Moni is here, and you both, you are the host of the Fake Ass Book Club, the Fab podcast. We've been talking about doing this for over a year. The last time we had it scheduled was last April, and then I had to go to the ER for remember the neck infection?
I do remember that.
Yeah, it was really bad.
I did recover though.
I did. After 9 different antibiotics, we got it down, and 2 different painkillers.
Lost a half an inch of height, but here you are.
They had to amputate my neck, but here I am. And so we wanted to talk about literacy and reading. And first, just straight up, tell us what your podcast is about.
I feel like I always start that. Why don't you tell us?
All right,
You
Kat,
started
go
our
ahead.
podcast one day. Our origin story is one day Moni was like, I need to do something outside of the house. And I'm an introvert. So she was like, Kat also needs to get out of the house. So we used to get together every Sunday, but as lives, kids, marriages, came around, that kind of went by the side. So now we're like, this is our Sunday get together thing where we talk about books, but sometimes we don't have time to read a book. So that's where the fake ass part comes in. But we still need to record every week. So we'll just talk about movies or what's going on or interview somebody. But basically our tagline is the club is fake, but the talk is real.
Mm-hmm.
And then our other tagline is we're the reason it was illegal to teach Black people how to read. In real time.
I didn't know that you guys were Black.
Yeah, that was Black History Month too. We're also here because it's Black History Month.
Congrats. I didn't do that. That was not on purpose, but yeah.
By the time this airs, or we were live, so yes, we were it's Happy Black History Month.
Because I hate that, when white people I wouldn't program the show where it's let's have black people on.
I don't mind pandering. You can pander a little. It's fine.
Yeah, we should have pandered. We should have subbed you out for Dion.
Yeah, you should have. I actually, you know what?
All the blacks.
My wife was in the hospital yesterday due to the pregnancy, which we'll get into here in a second. But I thought, if I can't make it, I'm not going to cancel on Kat and Moni again. Aww. Who could I get to come? Harry can co-host. I thought about asking Dion if he could come and be here. Because you two, but because I don't know if you've met Dion, Harry, but at least Dion knows who you are. You know him, and then they don't know you at all. So it'd be weird if they just showed up to talk. So but thankfully she's okay. She's got some bed rest today.
That's the most important part. That we're still able to. No, peace to Reagan. She is such a warrior.
Moni, can you just say hello for me?
Hello for me.
All right, perfect. I just got to turn you up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, we we were talking a little bit about abortion off air, which is a great way to get the podcast started.
I mean, a little light
topics,
conversation.
but that's why I like
Big
Kat is
deal.
because Kat, we can like have our deep conversations, and I noticed about what with you two.
Mhm.
What's really interesting is I was getting Squish. My stepdaughter's here. She is in the other room. She found Gunther's toys and was beyond the moon, and she's in there playing Rapunzel with Gunther's toys.
Yay.
She's like, "Come here, look at this." I was like, "You can play with it."
So
But you two just have like a natural flow of conversation. You two get together, and it sounded like you were on a podcast together. How long have you two been friends, and what attracted you two to each other right away?
Well, her blackness was something I enjoyed. No, seriously, we actually met. We both went to private school, St. Michael's here in Indianapolis, and she was actually a grade ahead of me. And part of it was she was one of the only black kids, so that was one thing. But also, she was just nice. I mean, like, she's a whole vibe. So we've maintained our friendship since the 1900s. So I'm very proud of that. We've known each other now for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? So we're not trying. Like, we genuinely enjoy each other's company and love talking to each other. In fact, we'll be done recording and be on the phone after. I'm like, is this normal?
That's fun.
Like, how are we still talking? We talk so much.
But Harry, that's what makes the best podcast. Like, our social group is this social group. Like, you just put this friendship on the air, and it's fun.
Correct. Yeah. The forced friendship of microphones also helps too.
Yeah, it gives you a purpose to kind of show up with each other.
Yeah. But absolutely, because I mean, again, it's an excuse to talk to one of my favorite people. I mean, Kat, to me, she's one of the most well-read people, so that's why I tapped her for this too. Because I like to read. I'm just not like, I don't geek out for stuff. The things that I geek out for aren't like, it's not. It's traveling like that, and really good food. So I like leisure. I need to be a woman of leisure. I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen. It's not working out for me because my life is the opposite of leisurely. However, this is me tapping into that though, because I feel like the podcast incorporates some of my favorite stuff. So being around people I like and talking to them. And then, we almost always have libations or some kind of snack, even if it's before. If I would have had time, if I wasn't a little bit late, I would have stopped and probably bought some food, because that's just me. Like, food is a big part of my life. I cook a lot, like to eat.
Do you bring food to the podcast?
Yeah, we try to eat before though, because we're trying to be more professional.
Look, food is brought to this podcast every week from Vincent, and you never share with me. Don't you look at me. You're the one in there eating gourmet sandwiches while I'm suffering through this diet.
Vincent is my co-host.
Well, Kat did say that, because I was like, should I stop and get donuts or something? She was like, no, I think Chris is like trying to be good. And I'm like, okay, that would be rude.
And I'm also fasting.
Are you?
Yeah. So
what kind of fasting?
So I'm just trying to give up sweets, like really processed sugar, but there was some in the margaritas yesterday.
Yeah, there definitely was.
I took a dub there, but
So Moni, Kat said you had the idea for the podcast.
Yeah.
What was the goal? What is the goal? I mean, we've done this for 10 years, almost 11 years, so it's evolved over time. But
yeah,
you can hear. I wonder if you can hear Squish singing on the.
She's adorable.
She's very cute. What's the mission with the show?
So our mission, Kat's mission specifically, is to turn everybody into nerds. I mean, that's one thing. She's trying to get some good PR for nerds out here.
Moni, we had to break them up because the two of them started talking Star Trek.
God, yeah, just have to turn my head like, oh God, here we go.
You will see Kat on Loki Wall soon.
Oh my God,
she will out nerd Harry.
She will out nerd anyone. Actually,
if we're gonna have her, we'll probably do maybe if we get you on one of the Friday shows, because that Friday shows we usually sit around and drink here.
Oh, let's
go.
Can I just come for the drink? See, I'm that friend. I'm sit and listen to my nerd friends talk while I drink. Right?
Like, you're so accommodating.
Yeah,
that's why it's always an easy hang.
Boom.
Why do you want to turn everybody? Go ahead, Harry.
I want to hijack the entire conversation right now.
No, all right, Harry, be quiet.
Bridge simulator games.
Look at this.
What's that?
Have you played any of the bridge simulator games?
Oh no.
Oh, so I'm not a gamer.
She's not a gamer.
I'm not a. Huh?
No, it's so you don't pay. I was surprised.
No.
Even better. There's like have you ever seen some of the Star Trek bridge simulator games?
No.
They're pretty cool. So it acts like you're actually on the bridge.
On the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
You have pictures on the set of the Enterprise, like the actual Enterprise.
I actually have one too.
So yeah, I will out nerd everyone down.
In order to break this up, would you mind turning off the air, please? Because there's significant hum in the audio. Please.
Depends on what temperature is
I don't-
the house.
off.
Okay. Depends on what the temperature is. If it's too cold per contract, I can keep the house at least 62.
Okay.
If it doesn't get over 62, then it stays on to its end.
All right.
That's
Okay.
fair. This is why I want to turn people into nerds. That logic was sound.
You can't argue with it. It's like, okay.
You know, that's why I want to turn people into nerds. We need a little more logic in our society.
Yeah.
What other reasons?
Well, I think we all benefit when everyone is well informed. I think getting good information out there now, especially since we're inundated constantly with information, since for people who are nerds, that's what you do when you nerd out on something. You consume a large amount of information about it. And then you also have to distinguish what's real and what's not. So I think that's one of the values of being a nerd. So whatever your nerddom is, like I'm not part of every fandom, but when you are, you know what it's like to do a deep dive and learn about something. And
I'm nerdy about podcasting. I love podcasting.
Yeah.
That's my probably more hairy than libertarianism, especially at this point in my life. But like for me, this podcast, I like talking politics. I like talking current events, but I'm nerdy about building the podcast part. Like that was the stuff that I always liked.
Yeah.
So everybody's got something they're nerdy about. You know, Moni, what is the thing that you're nerdy about?
I don't know. What do you think I'm nerdy about?
You're
I mean,
so
maybe
cool.
my job. You know, like I mean, I geek out for my job.
So
Not like I
no,
want to talk about that. What am I nerdy about?
But if you don't want to talk about it, you're not nerdy about it.
I got it. Everybody, this is the buildup.
Oh.
Organization.
Oh,
that's true. That is true.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's OCD though. Like, is that something we should?
No, that's nerdy.
Is it nerdy? Okay. Yeah. He's not lying. I do like organization.
Yeah, we can go like to the Container Store and
I
like
can't
go
wait.
hog wild.
Oh my God. It's true because instantly I am anytime that's true. I never thought
that's
about
the
that.
strength.
But that's not fun. Like I wanted it to be something more interesting than you like an organized.
Not everything can be fun. Like that's why I think we make a good combo for the podcast because you do the stuff that makes me want to jump off a cliff.
Boom.
And yes, I love editing. I feel
Right.
I feel so powerful when I'm editing. I'll be like, this is going forever.
Yes, you're damn right.
Getting me to like email.
Yeah,
No,
I'm the exact same. If you have emailed We Are Libertarians, you will get an email in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And if you've emailed me, I'm sorry. I'm just sorry.
Yes, like
do you do the amnesty January 1st? There's just an amnesty. If it's in the email box, it's going in the archive. I've never emailed it.
Oh, yeah.
You're done.
It's
You're
just
out of here. I'm glad you found ours because I'm pretty sure I emailed you when we first
Yeah.
reached out to you.
Well, once again, also trying is our superpower. We will just keep badgering people.
That part. And you know what I've learned? This has been a really dope part about podcasting for me in particular is consistency over intensity. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we've done pretty well, not because our product is always perfect. I mean, clearly there's audio stuff and lots of others, but I mean, the tenacity has been something that is like, okay, it builds your confidence up. You know?
You have to have that when you're doing a podcast.
You have to have it.
You have to have like that stick-to-itiveness when you're doing this.
Definitely.
And we've already done that for years when we were getting together on Sundays. Like we already had that discipline of like, no matter what I'm doing,
this is
like before
there was
self-care was
there.
cool, we were doing self-care.
Her grandma cooked every Sunday. How am I missing that? Like a home cooked meal by a lovely old lady. She was the best.
Yeah.
She made her hand squeezed lemonade. There was always charcuterie, salads,
a dessert.
Like
handmade dessert.
I'm on the couch. You know what I mean? Like I'm chilling. Leisure. Yes, every Sunday.
Harry, do you have a grandma?
Grandmas are the best.
Yes.
All right. Well,
that was Sunday at grandma's house.
Yeah. I mean, just a Black history fact. Like Sunday was the day we didn't have to work for Massa. So like that would be the day you make a big meal for the family and you know, kind of chill out. So we still do. I mean, she would always bring that up.
So you two, long before the podcast, would get together and hang out.
Oh yeah.
Everybody knew what I was doing on Sundays.
Right.
Like I'm at Kat's grandma's house. Don't even my dad, everybody. It was a well-known thing. So
when did that get started and why? Did you make it? Did you make it a conscious
slavery?
Wow, it's Black History Month.
Are you going to make this uncomfortable the whole time?
That's what we do.
Like
it's
slavery.
No. Moni, you don't do it.
I diffuse it. I have to. Yeah, she does. I was like, okay.
That is funny. She is the one that likes to poke, and then you're like the one like, this is just my friend. She's
right. It's like, guys, we're gonna move on.
It's like she's cool. No,
exactly.
Don't.
You're like in our group chat. I'll say something uncomfortable, and then Andrew Bowman will be like, "Hey,
Yeah,
guys."
that's me every single time. It's like, yeah, like
Hey,
Would you
my
believe she's a middle child?
My parents are fighting. I've got to
middle
make a
child.
joke.
That's the total middle child.
Look at
Yep,
me, everything's fine.
everything's fine here, guys.
Look what I can do with my arms.
Right, exactly. It's like that's
I'm an only child, so I'm like, I'm just gonna do whatever, and everyone's still gonna love me.
Harry, where are you at in the order? I'm the oldest.
I'm a middle child.
So
Okay.
you're responsible.
I want a
That
high
makes
five.
sense. Yeah.
Are you oldest?
middle child.
No, middle.
Middle.
That was
middle,
high five.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
only.
gotcha,
Yeah. So oldest, youngest. I'm the
Squish.
seal of the children.
My wife is the first. I'm the first. Squish is going to be responsible as fuck.
Yeah,
So,
man.
Yeah.
Out here.
She's doing it there. She's like
Ding,
ringing a bell.
There's a bell on the little farm.
She's already got the right energy when it comes to strangers.
That bought us an hour.
We like it.
No. If I know the person, she's
Just
shy.
pretend like you know everyone.
Right.
You're like, Dad knows everyone, honey.
But if it's a stranger, yeah, she's the best.
Making a beeline.
So, when did you just decide? You know what? We're already getting together Sundays. Let's put a mission to this.
Well, no, we weren't getting together on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You
Like we
needed a
fell
reason.
off.
It was a lot of lack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
Because
like,
I mean, it's sad. Like my grandmother had to stop cooking eventually. She
Right.
was just, getting older, and then my kids get older. And yeah, life just got crazy. So Moni, being the organized person, she was just like, "Look, if this is gonna happen, we need to be organized, and this is what we're gonna do."
yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Well, and it has evolved because initially it was just about connecting with my
Right.
friends. I'm like, I need this time and space with my friends because we actually had 2 other people that we did it with for a little bit before, but it evolved, so it changed. And Kat is, like we show up for each other. Like I know that like her schedule, I mean, even though I have to make time for it, it's like, you know what, Sundays was always the best day for us to get stuff done. So
Yeah.
it was like, let's just meet on Sundays and let's, because at first I was like, I don't know what this podcast should be about.
Yeah.
And so that's why I ended up being the Fake Ass Book Club, because it was about us connecting. And we did have a book club at one point, an actual book club where we started off really great, reading books, responsible,
Right.
and then it quickly devolved into margaritas and talking, and
that's
so
it.
I still wanted to keep, some of both of those things. But 2018 is when I first kind of floated the idea, and toward the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, we really started Fake Ass Book Club in it, and we've been doing it ever since. And I'm enjoying it a lot. Like this has been, it's been a really fun journey. And
I do better a lot of times when I listen to Moni. As I've matured, I was like, I just listen to her more, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do that.
I think it's we complement each other because the areas where I feel like I could use a little something, she's got that, and then vice versa. So she's one of I will not do something if I feel like it's not how I need it to be, or I'll
she's the Beyonce of the podcast.
It's like, this has to be, because you have a vision for it, you want it to be a certain way, and she's like, this is disposable
and I'm the nerds
content.
at Parkwood that
she's
no
like,
one
let's
knows
just
about.
keep doing it, throw it out there, just throw it out there. I'm like, you're right. So that's super helpful.
I'm always that way where it's Harry and I. He's like, the internet is now people just talking. Go watch Tim Pool. They don't have a script. I'm like, well, it has to be highly structured for it to be TikTokable. And
TikTok.
So it's always been that way.
Yeah, but it's not that way anymore. A lot of it has changed, and if you're trying to do it that way, like Hassan Anabi, one of the larger political streamers that are on Twitch, it's really just him in a TV screen reacting to other people's content, eating chicken nuggets.
Let's go, chicken.
It is some of the most lackluster content, but people
love
it.
But you two have found a good balance. But why books? Why? That's like really what I wanted to dig into. That's
a good question.
I really feel like because it is historically an act of rebellion. Like I make that joke, but it's funny because it's true. Like the reason it was illegal and sometimes punishable by death for Black people in this country to read was because of how dangerous it becomes. Like, initially just because we can forge our own paperwork and be like, oh, I have free papers.
Yeah.
Like that was initially it. But then it was because, hey, you can learn about in this state. As soon as you touch ground in here, you're a free person and your master's not allowed to human traffic you anymore. This was just human trafficking. So the having the information and empowerment you get from literacy and books, like I said, it's like boring, but it's boring but important.
Yeah, I think that is definitely lost on white people, in that the privilege of knowledge and understanding. Like, I have a neighbor who's 2 doors down. She's Black, and she has in her attic. She's like, I just wish my grandkids wanted these books, but they don't care. But these books are the books. These are the 5 books that my great grandfather had that taught him to read, and it was
Such a gift.
and so like
Yeah.
she was explaining to me one day, she was like talking about the privilege of like what an amazing opportunity it was for him to have those the opportunity to learn. I mean, Frederick Douglass is a hero to both you and I, but you especially,
Yes.
Harry. Like Frederick Douglass was given the opportunity to sneak in and learn to read, and he became, I think, the greatest
My God.
writer
Icon.
and libertarian in American history.
Yeah, well, like at the time he was with the abolition movement for the at the Republican Party when it was the abolitionist party, and then which I think I always looked up to Frederick Douglass because like the
Sorry, I gotta go talk to Squish.
Okay.
No worries.
Too many bells.
Those darn kids.
All right, yeah, but like I really because when Frederick Douglass, like right after the freedom from slaves was done with, he immediately put that sign down, walked across the street, and started advocating for the rights of women immediately. It was just like, okay, we've did this, now let's just move on, next thing. And that's another reason, like I gave huge respect to Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, I feel like one of his affairs was she was a suffragette, and that was
he's an icon.
cool.
Honestly, my son is really into him right now too. He's in 5th grade, and they have to do a speech. Just a big thing that they do in 5th grade, and he picked Frederick Douglass. It was either him or it was going to be Benjamin Banneker, but they had to memorize a speech and have to embody, the energy of that person. And he picked what's the 4th of July to a Negro, and my heart swelled with pride. Okay, because he memorized it like that, and he's really into it. And so, I would venture to say that even for across the board, people devalue reading in general because think about all of the content that we have. Because
it's not as stimulating. It requires more of you.
Exactly. I think it's just one of the harder sort of mediums to get into. It's so much easier to turn on. Especially now, like we have smartphones, we have access to so much.
But to me, it's like a form of time travel. So to me, it's the only way I really can time travel, which Star Trek has made me want to do. And so
back to Star Trek.
Yeah, back to Star Trek. But no, it's really one of the ways to do that. Like to me, it's so stimulating, so interesting. But are you an avid reader, Harry?
Yes. So like one thing that I really got out of my education was the ability to know that I can learn anything I want as long as there's a book. I can pick up that book and I can read that book and understand what's going on in that book. My teachers did a great job of just telling me like, the education is free. You can go and pick up a book. The piece of paper is what you pay for. The piece of paper that proves to somebody that you that you learned something. Like you learned something. But
what's the last book you read?
The last book the book I'm reading right now. The last book I read is it's called Not So 6 Easy Pieces. It's a physics book by
Could you say that again slower?
6 Not So Easy Pieces.
6 Not So Easy Pieces. Okay.
Got
It's a physics book.
Sorry, I listen slow.
Yeah, it's a beginning physics books.
Okay.
The book I'm going through right now is I'm reading Quantum and The Search for Schrodinger's Cat. It's about the histories of quantum mechanics. About when they were getting all the scientists together to be in the early stages of going from Newtonian physics to this what we call modern physics. Which I'm not a physicist.
I was just getting ready to say. So
I love that.
I wouldn't
we
think
talked about Schrodinger's cat on our program because you read enough, it comes up.
Correct.
And because
can you explain it for those who don't know?
So
I totally know, but explain it to me like I don't.
He knows exactly.
So
I only know
because okay. So the Schrodinger guy, is it indeterminacy or indeterminacy?
Yeah, indeterminacy of it's the.
Yeah, it's a cat in a box with a bomb, and basically, while it's in there, you don't know if the cat's alive or dead. So it's both at the same time because you never know when you're gonna have a box full of dead cat. So
all I'm thinking about is bomb ass box.
Oh wow!
Sorry,
too much.
Sorry, too much pat down.
Yeah, no, this is science, Chris. This is serious.
Oh my god!
And the brilliance of it, like the act of it,
I don't know. Did I describe that right? I feel like that was
it's
really
close. It's close.
Yeah,
it's fun.
That was how it's in my brain.
But the thing is, it was a thought process to try to.
Yeah, it's a thought experiment.
Yeah, to get basically Albert Einstein to understand or try to help discredit quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and they when they presented that to Einstein, he just kind of sat there for a second and went, "Okay, this makes sense now."
Nice.
Can I nerd out real quick?
I mean, I don't think I can
Everyone-
stop you.
So
I'll try if it's too far.
I took physics in high school.
Mhm.
And so we went on a field trip to Kings Island and like had to do the physics of Kings
that's
Island.
cool. What a
But
great
That's
way
a
to
fun
learn.
way to do it,
Thank
though.
you.
I wouldn't have
If you're
gotten a
gonna do
D in
it.
that class. Had I.
See, exactly.
But we were the dorks at Kings Island with like the daggone protractors and
That would have been fun.
and workbooks and things like that.
I need to measure your tracks.
Well, no, because we'd have to stand there and do like that. But it was like that class was the first time like science became alive to me because we could do experiments that showed the physical universe. That's why we talk about gravity all the time on the show because I'm like because
No one's dying over here.
Harry
It's like,
is ready to
what?
join your show. Harry's ready to leave the network.
Harry, I shut it down though. Sometimes it's like, okay,
she does. It's like, okay, boo nerd.
right.
Gravity.
But that sounds great though.
Yeah, gravity as a force.
Said
is amazing.
gravity and Harry swooned.
I know. I was like, wow, what's
Gravity
happening over
is
here?
fascinating. It affects our passage through time. That's wild to me.
Well, she does like to remind me about that.
No, I
But-
think
So like there was a couple of things that we had like in the chat room. Like I spent a day a day learning about HVAC systems in outer space because of how gravity
yeah.
does move and how they have to use like this liquid to move heat and cooling on the space station. Brilliant little rabbit hole to go into. Something I probably will never use.
But you know
Well,
now.
It's like because the algorithm knows what to bring to me, like and stuff. Because one of them was an article about how people use the bathroom in space because you basically have to use vacuums, and it was wild,
Ew.
right? Well,
Moni, was there a moment in
Gross.
your education where so for me it was Mr. Binge in 11th grade standing up in front of the class in world history going, power is an illusion because you all could overrun me right now and walk out of class because there's 20 of you and one of me, but you don't do it because you think that I have the power. And that was the first step to libertarianism. Was there a moment in your education, like Kat, where you were like, oh, wow, I'm really into learning. I'm really like blows your mind and you almost become addicted to it?
No, I didn't. No, I have to. That's what I'm saying. Like, no. It was largely. I was just trying to get the hell out of there. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't really. I think not until I went to school. So I do medical imaging. I got to geek out a little bit with the physics and stuff like that because I've always liked science. So learning about how I feel like I'm a practical learner. Like I like learning about stuff that I'm gonna actually do. You know what I'm saying? So like for me, it was like, oh wow, I'm literally learning the science behind how these machines work, all of that kind of stuff, the kilovoltage, the milliamperage, all of that kind of stuff. So probably not until I went to college, honestly. Like I don't remember any real formative stuff that blew my mind. Like certainly not in high school. I think partly because of the environment. It was a huge high school. And it wasn't like I had that one teacher that was like, there's something special here. It was like, I mean, I'm just here, you're here. Like, we're just here. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, no, you're perfectly average and you're probably, whatever.
Did you all like I went through a period like in my 20s where I just didn't read, didn't learn. Like I would listen to radio or podcasts, but it wasn't intentional. Like now I intentionally try to like have a system to learn and read and make sure that I do that. Like, or did you kind of keep up with your reading and make sure that it was a constant discipline?
No, I think for me, I've always enjoyed reading and I made some time for it, but it was not ever, again, like I'm not the nerd one like that. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's why I like book clubs though, because I feel like it is important. Like I think it's important, but it's not always the most.
It's like working out.
Interesting thing. Yes. But once you start
it's
doing
good
it,
for
it's
me.
like, okay.
Yeah.
It's
It's like, oh, I feel
so
better.
yeah, I've always kept people around who I feel like are, slightly more brilliant than me because I feel like, the company you keep is important. It gives you something to aim towards. So like for me, I feel like a lot of my friends have these, fancy jobs and degrees and stuff. And I mean, I have a degree, but it's, for me, my thing is really building relationships. I think that my thing is more interpersonal.
So
I'm good at making friends.
reading
I'm more
books.
stuff. Yeah.
She stay reading
I
books.
stay reading books.
She
but
she never fell off.
no.
Because if anything more. like it increased. I feel like maybe in your
like
20s.
now,
Yeah,
just now,
it's
like, I
always
would
kind of
say
gone up.
it's
But
been.
there's never been. And for me, I've been ever since I've been able to read. I've been like, give me more books. And then they started the Book It program. It's like get free pizza.
Fuck yeah,
man! Try to keep stuff. I read when I'm not supposed to. Like, yeah.
Where?
So I would get in my
Sex
20s.
or...
I would. Wow. There's been times.
Boring. Oh my
where
God,
I
can
wish
you imagine?
Right where I wish I was like, oh, I wish I was reading.
Let's get into a good part.
Can you flip over? I got something else to do.
Right.
No, I would say in my 20s, I had jobs where I could read on the job. I've had, even in my office job, I remember before, because I'm old enough to remember before the smartphones and stuff like that. Like I couldn't sit at my desk and be reading a book. Like my manager would get mad. So I started printing out pages on the printer and just had books that looked like I was doing like paperwork. And I'm really reading like Arabian Nights or something.
I used to buy the trade paperback so I could put them in my pocket. Now I've got the Kindle. Wow. Were you the kid cat? Like I would walk out with the book stacked under my chin at the library.
No, I knew myself enough to know that I wouldn't be able to keep up with all of them. So it would just be one or two at a time.
Now, are you I've got to start and finish and then move on to the next one, or are you like I read like 50 different books at a time?
No, I'm a completionist. Because I get obsessed. I'm like, especially if it's good, I'm like, oh, I'm totally into it, taking notes, like all that stuff. But and then with audiobooks, because I used to have books on cassette. Like I used to actually like have my Walkman. Yeah.
Fiction or nonfiction?
I could no sooner choose a favorite child.
Okay, all right.
I could choose a favorite child. Oh.
Yeah, I'm all nonfiction. I think I've read one nonfiction book.
And we noticed that with our male guest quite a bit.
Really?
They're not really into fiction as much.
Why do you think that is?
I think it might be they're just dumber. Ooh, hot take.
Miss Sandry will not be allowed on this podcast, just like misogyny will not be allowed on this podcast.
No, I'm just joking. I think we're just different, and it takes a certain amount of imagination, and a lot of people just don't like things can be like with Star Trek. I get why people don't like Star Trek.
Right.
It's just too fantastic. It's like, okay, there's like these blob monsters. What's going on? And for me, I love going there.
Yeah.
Like make it as weird as possible. So that's why I like fiction fantasy. But at the same time, I love a real story. Like there's not, we have a segment Stranger Than Fiction because a lot of times, one of my favorite writers said that it's like writing fiction is hard because it has to make sense. Real life doesn't have to do shit.
Yeah. So you guys, we'll get back to the fiction nonfiction debate, but just to be clear, like on your podcast, you have on authors. Do you pick a book every episode still, or do you kind of mix it up? Like, but you're intentionally talking about a book, an episode, or talking to an author, or like, is that the general vibe of the show?
I have stats. So like last year we did 52 episodes and we read about 28 books.
Okay.
But in between, it was like movies, shows, and interviews.
See, that's where I get most of my fantasy comes from watching television with my wife and, in the evening. But reading to me is utilitarian. Like I've got to learn about a subject for this. So I just don't like, I've started Game of Thrones and I enjoy it. But like reading to me, that's why I do a lot of nonfiction. It's like there's a purpose to it. What about
are you reading Game of Thrones?
I'm reading like last night. I was like, I just don't want to read about like I'm reading. My choice was like 4 different nonfiction books, and I was like, I just don't want anything heavy. I just want to like read something silly because I'm just not in that mood. But most nights I'm like, all right, let's read about Shinzo Abe and the near history of Japan. But
Abe is it's an
amazing man. That book is dry as dirt, but I got like 1.5 chapters left, and I'm gonna finish it.
I don't want to get
anyways, but Harry, what about you? Is it fiction, nonfiction?
Nonfiction paper, fiction audiobooks. I will only listen to fiction if it's an audiobook. For some reason, the idea of holding
lies, a book of lies, basically.
I can't sit still and like get into it, or it's also a combination. If I get real into it, I'll zone out and be in that world and just do it, and we'll just chew through it. I started that addiction in was like 98 when I got into the Animorph series. I did leave with the whole stack at the library with the entire every Animorph book or book I could get my hands on. But like even now, like when I picked up like the World of Darkness and Me series or the what is it, like the Harry Dresden files. That was like the last like fiction paper book I was picking up, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go to audiobooks with these. This way I can hit play and go do something else.
That part.
Do you ever see yourself writing a book?
I thought about, but I'm a terrible writer.
Yeah, me too.
I make great stories, so I write stories for tabletop RPG games.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am a
Dungeon Master.
Dungeon Master, yes, yeah.
Oh, okay. I was never allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons. It was the devil.
Oh, okay. See, I learned how to play D&D at church.
Weird. See, we have different churches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would definitely like to write a book someday. I'd like to write a book about podcasting, and I'd like to write a book kind of about and they wouldn't really be for other people. Like I want to write the book so I read this book, How to Blog a Book.
Okay.
And so for my podcasting podcast, it's kind of, I got started on that track where it's like you write a blog to turn into a book, and the process of like thinking it through in a very systematic way, I could then use for my podcasts. So I'd like to do one for this where like I'm really exploring my beliefs about politics and history and religion, and like I'd like want to write a book to kind of like solidify that for myself. But I don't know that I'd ever release that. It would just be sort of like an activity to get myself to do it. But I just don't have time to write. Like I'm too busy editing. Yeah, like
So Vincent's just finished up his book of like a couple of months ago.
Okay.
It's been at his editor. It's now on my desk because I need to finish his synopsis, which I haven't finished yet because I'm also a terrible writer. So trying to I've been trying to get him alone so I could just like I've been trying to do that like voice his synopsis like here this is the synopsis of your book. I could rather say it and then because me putting it down, because me putting it down on paper is like this is awful. I'll hit delete. And he's just like, stop it. I'm like, oh, that's ugly. That's terrible writing.
I'm deeply, deeply fascinated by the process of writing and writing as like a daily habit. And that's like something I really want to do. All right, let's take a quick break real quick. Gunther just walked in and we're going to say a quick hello. All right, welcome back to We Are Libertarians here on the Chris Spangle Show. We are talking with our friends Kat and Moni from the Fake Ass Book Club, and also Harry Price is here. And in the background, if you hear any adorable conversation, that is Gunther and Squish having a conversation and playing and being very cute.
Serious business.
So we were talking about if you would like to write a book. But yeah, I mean, I write a lot. I write a lot of copy. I write a lot of just stuff. Grammarly says 56,000 words a week are checked. So I'm constantly writing, but it's like superfluous. It's just like YouTube descriptions and podcast descriptions.
So does that count, Chris? Because I thought about that as well. So I think it's interesting that you're saying like you're good at reading something and saying, here's the story, right? Like I think Kat's excellent at that. I have so many words. It's like, well, what's the moment? How do we gather this up very succinctly? So I think that is a vibe. But you know, I'm noticing I'm writing a lot too. And it's like my show notes are like, why are they this descriptive? Like nobody even cares. But it's like I feel like I want if you go into the show notes, like I want you to be able to reference some of the things we talked about because you might not go look them up. But if I put them right here, I'm making it easy for you.
There's people who can't listen to the podcast.
There you go.
Know, we've had a lot of people. I'm doing full transcriptions now because I can afford for us to do that because we've all the years had people ask, like,
Oh,
you know, and it just helps people. I think when you have a description like you're saying, they can
Yeah.
make a decision on what to listen to. But
for sure.
yeah, so I do write all day. Like I'm mostly a writer, but
Yeah.
it's not in a way that I would. I'd love to write a nonfiction book at some point.
Right. Yeah. I could feel that. I definitely could feel
How
that.
many like what's your reading habit? Like I've definitely built my own reading habits. I'd love to hear how you guys kind of like go about reading. How do you find the time?
I don't
Your
have any.
moms, you work, your dads, you work.
So I think for the podcast, for the most part, we do audiobooks.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So when we're in transit, like I always say, I tell my kids to rate and tip me on the mom app because I'm just their Uber driver.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, from going from place to place, a lot of times when I'm doing chores, listening to audiobooks and podcasts. yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as like sitting and reading, because every once in a while there won't be an audiobook for something we've picked. So to have to sit and read, I'm a introvert, so I find tons of time to be by myself. So
Mm.
I'll just like a lot of times when I'm just sitting in the car waiting for the kids to come out, like, yeah, if I have a book, pull it out, read it before bed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's why I like early release Wednesdays at my daughter's school, because you get there early, you can sit there and be in line and
Yeah.
just read.
It's such a peaceful moment.
Oh man.
It's just that moment you steal for yourself. Where it's
I had
just like,
another conversation with somebody who's like, the line is my Zen moment.
It kind of has to be because you're just stuck there. You realize I'm trapped, and it's like
it's like,
I gotta
yeah,
do
I'm just
something.
here now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Isn't
for
that
sure.
kind of interesting where it's like we have so little silence and so
Oh my
much movement
God.
in our lives that when
So
you have
much.
those little moments of like sitting still, you're like,
Mhm.
This is awesome.
holy shit.
It feels great.
This is awesome.
It
And
feels
we
great.
I still like going to the library.
We went yesterday. And it was
Yeah,
closed.
yeah.
Security let us know.
It's
They're
one of
like,
my
"You can't
happy
be here."
places. Like
Yeah.
even if I don't even get anything, sometimes just walking around
Mm.
looking at books is just very soothing.
Mhm.
Same thing, half price books, like just seeing what
Yes.
they have. Like,
God,
yeah, it's a good day. It's a good day.
Dangerous.
If I
This is
have time to go
dangerous.
to half price books.
I realized about 3 years ago that when my parents would fight as a kid, I would ride my bike to the library.
Oh.
And so, because I was trying to figure out in therapy why I have so many books and why I love shuffling the books and I'm constantly.
Oh, you're like
moving
Matilda.
It is a
Chris, we got Chris's origin story. He's
it's
Matilda.
Dion Curry has a comment for you. It said effing nerds.
Thank you, Dion.
damn
We
right.
knew you knew.
So like shuffling the books is like a soothing thing for me because it was just like the library was my escape. I love reading. I read 2 hours a night before bed. Like I'm a big Kindle guy. I will read
Paperwhite or the fire?
Oasis. But
wow.
the
And see, and this
Paperwhite
is where I have to fight you,
Wow.
Chris. I hated the
Wow.
Kindle.
really? Why?
I like physical books.
I do too, but there's some like at night with a like Reagan next to me with when your partner
Logistics, yeah.
is like I'm up for an hour, so I can't be on my phone playing TikTok videos like I really want to.
Maybe that's why I'm single. I was like,
Maybe you won't turn that light off.
I
Oh my
sure
God.
won't.
Were you as a kid? I would have my
Yeah.
flashlight reading.
Yes, in the car. Like if we were on a road trip. Like yes, when I found they had those little clip lights. That go over the
Yes.
top, I was like, yes.
I just bought one last year because I was like,
future's
because I
arrived.
can. I want
Right.
my own.
This is mine.
Yeah, every once in a while I've had to do like the Kindle app,
Mhm.
and it's my least favorite way to
Mhm.
read.
I don't like the phone, but the Paperwhite is like reading a book to me.
Mhm.
Like
And
You
I
can have the
should
little
love it because it's
sound.
like that's how they read on Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I should love it, but no, I love a book.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. Is listening to an audiobook reading?
Yes.
Technically,
Yes.
no.
Dion tried
Yes.
to tell us it wasn't.
I mean, because you're not
Dion's wrong a
not
lot.
actually reading. You're listening to it, but I don't think that one is superior. Like I think as long as you're getting the information, you're still
Yeah.
taking it in. I think some people can't do audiobooks because for whatever reason. Because I
Yeah,
think one of
our brains
guests,
are different.
Yeah, our
I've
brains
heard
are
that from a lot
different.
of people. Like, because some people can't do podcasts. Like, they
Yeah.
just don't like people in their ear.
Yeah. And I love talking. I
too.
love listening to people talk. So it works for me. And like she said, a lot of times I don't have time to sit down and physically read a book. I'm so easily distracted, you guys.
Mhm.
Squirrel.
That little
So-
like I noticed about 2010 after I got the smartphone, my reading ability and comprehension went way down because my brain's going, what's going on over here?
Yeah, see that part. It's not even that. It's just, it doesn't even matter what it is. It's hard for me not to be in the moment. So if my kids are in front of me, I can't ignore them. Like I feel like I have to be engaged. So for me, it's
Yeah.
like if I find a moment to sit down quietly, it's usually at the end of the day, and I'm tired, and I'm not usually probably going to read. I'm going to go to bed. So
Did
the
you like it in
audiobooks
school,
work.
like when the teacher would like read you in class?
No.
You didn't like that?
Oh, I did.
I love
I liked
that.
it.
Well, define that. Like,
so like there would be a part in the day like where our teacher would just, let's say, like the one I really remember is like the Little House on the Prairie series. So like it would just be quiet time, and she'd kind of turn the lights down, we put our heads down, and she would just read.
I don't know that I ever had that. I don't remember it if
remember that.
they did that.
Oh
I
yeah,
liked that
they
too. I liked that.
yeah, to me that was deeply relaxing, but for some people they hate it.
Yeah.
Like they don't like being read to.
I was like, that is
Yeah, but
dare
to
you.
me, I've always found it deeply relaxing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I am able to consume a lot of books and get through a lot of books because of audiobooks.
Mhm.
But it's probably 50-50, and I do think it is reading because the point is to get the information in your head.
Mhm.
But I will say that my retention rate with audiobooks is probably 60% what it is if I'm reading.
Really?
But what I will do is I'll get the audiobook and the Kindle, and then as I'm listening, I will go, and I'm a big highlighter, and so like physical book or Kindle, I'll have 100 highlights a book, maybe more. And so I'll get the library version of the audio and the Kindle, or I'll get the Kindle, or I'll buy it and then highlight the information that I want to retain. And then I'll port it over to something called Readwise, which is this app that every day you get like 12 different past highlights. So it like helps you remember the information that you highlighted. But I do think that it's all consuming the information. But if I noticed yesterday, I was like listening to an audiobook as I was driving and I was zoning out. So I just rewound it 10 minutes and turned on music because I was like,
You're not in the right mindset.
I'm not just trying to breeze through it. I'm trying to get the information in my head as opposed to just hit the goal.
We were talking earlier about like why people don't like reading. And
Mm.
I think one of the reasons is because you have to shut down your own narrative to step into someone else's. And that's why I've always considered it a meditation, because you have to turn your brain off
That's
for
so
a while.
easy for me, guys.
To
like,
yeah,
super
and for
easy.
me it's super easy. I'll zone out super hard and not hear people talking to me. Like I'll just be gone. But I came up with a good question. Like, what's the book you've read the most? Because I feel like you don't really know a book until you've like read it 3 times. So, like, do you? And a lot of people don't even reread books or rewatch movies. But when I'm a little bit of a,
I have a definite answer. Harry, do you have an answer?
I'm trying to think of a book that I've reread that isn't like a technical manual, because I have probably read technical manuals
Right.
over the.
I'm not going to count that, Harry.
I mean, I hate to
And
be like
I don't
judgy,
know
but
why.
you're right.
I just-
Technical manuals, like that's I hate reading stuff like that. I don't want to
You're
be
right.
like this is ridiculous. I don't want to read.
always Moni
says,
threw up.
says,
I'm like, yuck, that sounds terrible.
my aunt used to always say, all
What?
words, no pictures.
like,
I'm telling you,
I don't want that.
reading the book of Nothing But TCP/IP Technology, it's a 24 chapters, and it's amazing, and it goes into in-depth detail of how Ethernet works. And it's amazing.
Okay,
That
I
does
was
not
joking
sound
about
amazing.
the
That
fucking
sounds
nerd part, but
awful.
Dion's right. You're a nerd.
That is
Not everybody can be
terrible.
as cool as Dion.
My God.
Mine is the #1 book that I reread every year at Christmas time is A Christmas Carol. I think the book
Okay.
is so much better than any adaptation, including the Muppets Christmas Carol, which is supreme.
That's really
The
Muppets.
writing is superb. The way that he tells the story is amazing. The moral of the story is amazing. The second book that I've read the most in my life is All Over But the Shouting by Rick Bragg, who's this Southern author who's an amazing storyteller, has written several books. Really love that book. I read that probably 10 times in my teens and 20s. So, but the Christmas Carol for sure. I read that every year because I really like that. The Bible, I guess.
I knew you
but
were going to say that. I was like, somebody's going to put the Bible out there. I don't
But
know who
that
it's
to me
gonna
is like a
be.
cop out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah, that's like a
The
cop
Holy
out
Bible.
answer, right?
Unless
Chris.
you're reading in Hebrew, then it's okay.
What's the book that you most recommend to people? Oh, the Bible. Okay, all right.
It's like, give me a break. Now,
It's like I haven't heard
can
of that.
we
Who
agree-
wrote
that's
it?
I mean, that's also a boring book. Like, I don't want to read that.
It's also missing chapters.
It's right. It's not the whole thing. It's like, I'm sorry. Maybe that's Christian school.
Well, what have you
K through
read the
8.
most?
I don't reread books. I'm one of those people.
Oh,
Remember,
you're one
I'm
of the,
trying
you're
to.
done.
I'm learning that
Okay.
that's a thing though. But the one book that I did end up rereading because of the podcast was Feast of All Saints, which we haven't reviewed yet
We
on the podcast.
haven't.
That's a
we're supposed to do that for
fiction.
Black History Month, and it is pretty much.
We were
over.
supposed to do it for a whole bunch.
We're
of
supposed
stuff.
to do. We're supposed to do a lot of stuff.
But
actually.
it's a fake ass book club.
It
so
is.
It's fine.
Kat, what about you?
I think the book that I've read the most is Alice Walker's Possessing the Secret of Joy.
What's it about?
Oh no, Chris, don't ask.
I've never heard it. You have a
You're gonna
2
be
minute
sorry
time
you
2 minute time
asked.
limit based on
You're
Moni's
gonna be
reaction.
sorry
2 minutes
you
on the clock.
asked.
Go. Okay, so it's about female genital mutilation.
All right,
And-
moving on to the next. So Dion
A little
says,
light conversation about that.
Dion says reading and listening aren't the same thing. Because I asked the chat, is listening a book reading? Anna,
It's audio reading.
Anna says, depends what the book is. If there's some theoretical book that you need to reference, it's nearly impossible to do audio. But fiction, it steals something from your imagination a bit. The interpretation does it. And then Sherry says, absolutely. There are studies showing that audiobooks are the same as being read to and helps children with comprehension, which is a key reading skill. Also, Sherry, a librarian, says, putting on my librarian hat, if you're in Indiana, you can get sets of books for book clubs through Novel Conversations. Look up Novel Conversations. It's predominantly fiction, though there's some nonfiction. Your library will get you sets for you. So Novel Conversations.
I will say that the physics books on audiobooks, I think I have had to stop my car on I-69.
The most dangerous.
pull up the book, the physical book, because the audio is just like, the what? And I have to sit there like, I kept not leaving until I figure this out.
What I do is I take screenshots of stuff I want to reference later when I'm listening to a podcast, because that happens to me all the time where I'm like driving and I'm like, oh, I want to look this up later.
I can't imagine listening to what you're describing right now. Like, honestly, I mean, I'm having a hard time with it.
But thank you to everyone who commented, because that was good information.
Ron says some people comprehend by listening to themselves. So yes, I'm one of those people. I like to talk it out.
Okay.
Well, there's also like the YouTube is also built on a lot of video essays.
Yeah.
One of my favorite video essayists is Aiden Paladin. She makes amazing videos, and she has an amazing, great. I fell in love with Aiden for her sources, because she was just source everything, just pages and pages of sources. And but it's some great detail, a lot of statistical information. But it's probably going to go by the wayside once you finish her doctorates. So she's not be able to study and have access to all these like really great sources.
Yeah, podcasting, it can be conversational like this where you don't have it, but if you're doing like something like YouTube or a podcast, it's writing, man. It's researching and writing like you did when you were in school.
It's crazy. I didn't. Yeah, that was surprising.
That was surprising.
Yeah, the amount of work in podcasting, honestly,
because people tell you like, oh, it's a lot of work. It's like, I've worked hard before. It'll be fine. I was like, oh no, this is a lot of work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we still do it.
Yeah, we still, of course, try. I mean,
I still like it. Everything's work, so just find the kind you like. That's
you get to choose your work.
Yeah, you got to fill your time with something. Choose wisely. It's the main reason why, like, I do a lot of my own car maintenance, and I choose around the same type of car because it makes the job easier.
Yeah.
So do you read up on it and stuff? Or
Yeah. Like when I first took my first engine apart, like I didn't know how to put it back together. I actually had to read to put it back together.
That sounds. I don't like putting stuff together.
I do
either.
It's fun.
I think I get that honest.
It's just a big puzzle.
Weirdly
Yeah.
enough, do not like puzzles, like jigsaw puzzles.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like
No.
you don't like.
I don't have the
No.
attention span for that.
Word puzzles. Everyone
like
listening, make sure you follow us on YouTube so you can see my Wordle every day. I get the Wordle every day, and I record myself solving it. You're welcome.
I will say, like, taking the engine apart and learning how to put it back together has made me, when I solidified that I knew the woman I was dating was going to be my wife, because I took the engine apart, left it on the dining room table, and she came home from work with this engine apart in the dining room, and she just kind of looked at it and just kept going.
Yeah, you found the right one. It was like you found the right one.
I would have had to at least ask, what is this and why is this winter week? So can we talk about the timeline on when?
I wouldn't even need to know. I was like, I'm leaving you forever. We
When
wouldn't even have to have a conversation.
Lacey is a
fixing the
saint.
car and saving money, I'm okay. But this is not going to be an indefinite project. That's what this is not going to be, because I can't.
Yeah,
I won't be able to live.
Lacey's a saint, a patient woman.
Is that right?
Yeah.
See?
Rivaled only by
so.
Reagan, who has a much worse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I do think, you were asking earlier about guys and why they don't necessarily enjoy fiction. I think that it's a level of practicality involved, because even when I was asking my brother, he's like, if I'm going to spend my time, I want to feel like I'm making it count. I want to learn about things that I don't know about. You know what I mean? So,
but
respect.
but I always say there's a case to be made for abstract thinking, because there's so much to learn from outside of ourselves. Because to bring back to Star Trek, like that's what helps to keep you from I realize a lot of my own prejudices because I'm seeing a narrative played out that I'm in, but it's not exactly me though. Like I can see myself a little clearer because I don't have my biases chiming in.
I wonder if
aliens.
maybe it's hard to break in. It's why they just make a million Marvel movies now. Because like if you said to me, go read a fiction book, I'd be like, I guess I'll get Game of Thrones because I like that.
You know the
right?
characters.
But like I don't know. I just wouldn't go to the library and just pick a book off the shelf in the fiction section. Like
science fiction section.
Yeah. And that's another reason why like Japanese manga has gotten like huge because of like there's tons of different number ones, there's tiny little series, and a lot of them are self-contained without 30-40 years of backlog crap that you may not need. Is just reason why like most modern American comics suck, because you don't know where to start. They have rebooted it so many times. Is this New 52? Did this Flashpoint? Did this happen? Well, which Flashpoint? Well, which Green Lantern are we talking about? But
that's why you got to stick to Archie comics.
I loved Archie comics.
That's how I read most of my book. I wrote down Mark Twain, but it was Archie.
That's probably why I'm friendly towards the concept of polyamory, because that's basically what was going on. Wow. I mean, not for but like I'm just not openly rejecting it for people like you're crazy and be like, yeah, I saw this play out for a while. It was so weird. Like looking back now, I'm like, I just was reading this as a child. And them both sipping out of that milkshake. I was like,
and then he'd walk to the other table and sip out his like, it's like, hey. What?
Yeah, that's one of the things I used to like, because this was back when you could buy comic books at the grocery store, and that would be my thing. I'd get those.
I almost got her an Archie comics, but you just made me rethink it.
I mean,
I've got those hiding in the basement. I'm gonna go put those.
There would be some wild stuff in there. I mean, you get away with more when it's cartoons.
I had the biggest crush on a girl in high school that looked like Jughead. Is that
really?
a problem?
That is weird. Well, that his girlfriend. It's funny you didn't say Jughead's girlfriend Esther, because she looked like him. So why not? Like, you could have had it.
There's a weird thing, Harry. Have you noticed with libertarians where they date somebody who looks like them?
Oh, you're just in love with yourself. That's fine.
I don't know.
Love yourself.
I don't notice that.
Sherry says, looking for cheap physical books. Libraries typically have book sales in April. They sell the stuff we weeded out in donations. If you're in an indie, they have a huge sale.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I guess for me, yeah, I probably don't read a lot. I do read like classical, like the Iliad. Like I've been in that for like 2 years.
Novels brought up? No, there's like some really good graphic novels.
I just read one called The Plot about the Protocols of the Elders of Zion that I'm going to eventually get a show done on.
Actually, isn't that like the anti-Jewish thing?
Yeah.
Yikes.
But so Will Eisner's invented graphic novels, and his last graphic novel was about that.
Yikes.
And basically showing what a fraud it was.
Oh, okay, that's cool then.
But when I've read graphic novels in the past, I've enjoyed it, but there was always a purpose to it. It was when I was a kid, I loved like Batman and fantasy stuff, but I just don't.
But
have
maybe because when I'm thinking about this concept of like women maybe liking fiction more, or being so, for me, I think I like people. That's what I'm learning, is that I like hearing people's stories. So I like biographies a lot of the time. People who I think might be interesting, but it's almost like in my real life, there's not a lot of exploration of certain, you know what I mean? Like everything is like task oriented. So it's like I need time to take myself outside of.
Would you also say that like it's like women, I mean, women recommend things to each other maybe a little more, like
maybe
in the history world, like like Robert is always, you got to read this history book, because it's the storyline and it's great, the historical writing, and it's really good. Is it maybe just that a lot of your guests have friends, so it's like an entry point where it's like, I read, where the crawdads sing, and you got to read it.
I figured it out. It's because real life is so much worse for women. We're looking for an escape.
Thank you for saying that. Like, so not like that. So I don't know how to verbalize it 100%, but I do think
Because that's why I love Star
it's like you
Trek.
get
Because in
more
the future, it's
playtime,
not sexist. Like
free
that's why I
time.
loved going there because the women were just
It's why I'm
people.
podcasting in real life.
Yeah,
Like it's like
like I want a
because
better
everything is
future.
so yes, there's not like I'm not gonna sit down and play video games. It's not my jam. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
like I think that sometimes reading can be that for a lot of women. So like you know, whether it's now we don't really get into like you know, romance novels and stuff like that. Maybe
No.
when I was younger because I didn't have access to real actual romance and so it's more fascinating, but or you know, sex stories and stuff like that. But I think at this point, I think just taking yourself outside of just what the everyday normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it's like, wow, okay, I
Take
get
them
to
on
go
an
somewhere else.
adventure.
Yeah, this feels very
Anna says books were what movies are right now. It is known women loved what would be rom-coms in book form, and it was becoming a problem.
Like the Jane Austen stuff.
okay.
Harry, I feel like men do have like I'd say video
Like the
games is definitely like a fantasy and escape. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and which video games to a lot of people, if you well, certain video games, I should say, because the video game industry is large, just like any other type of industry. But video games sometimes do have like visual novels into them, and they also do have stories to tell, just more in an interactive fashion.
Oh yeah.
And since men are more visual, they like to see different things, so video games will attract them. So they will pour into these really long video games that have really amazing fictional
Storylines.
stories to tell. Like
Yeah.
most men, like you probably haven't read the Iliad or won't even know what the heck Odysseus is, but I could probably go through different stories from like Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and
And have
a lot of
similar
different like
narratives.
RPGs games. Yeah.
Mhm.
I would say that. So I read a lot of history, but the history is an escape. It's not purposeful. It's almost like reading fiction. And the books that me and my friends recommend to each other, my fellow history nerds,
Mhm.
they're always books that are written like Eric Larson is like the gold standard right now of
Okay.
or David McCullough writing history in a way that's like a novel, like
Okay.
a fiction. And I think part of the escape is control, is that you know the outcome, so you can kind of pick the outcome that you want
Mhm.
as a way to kind of like, whereas if you're reading like politics, you're getting mad, you don't have any
Mhm.
you don't know the outcome of
Right,
what this
right.
is going to be. It's a constant motion thing where
Mhm.
like you sort
The
of
not
always
knowing
you
part.
always sort of know how if your uncle or granddad is into Hitler books and World War II,
Mhm.
Right.
like they love getting into that subject and kind of finding the nooks and crannies of things. And like it is sort of that control thing. So
Yeah.
where it's sort of like I don't have control over here in my future, but I can at least kind of understand more about this thing and kind of find those nuggets.
I also think when it comes to a lot of different men's friends groups, is like a
Mm.
lot of men don't have a lot of big, like huge friend groups,
Yeah.
especially
Or any.
or any. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So like
That's
yeah,
weird.
Well, men are
it's an
just less. We're evolved to be more social than men,
yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
just
so
feels
it
really
can
weird.
happen.
yeah, 100%. That's why
Yeah.
female like autists are really hard to discover or diagnose. Is because
Yeah.
uh,
We're
women
just pronounced difficult.
Pronounced.
because
You're
women
difficult.
keep updating well men will just in a computer term is like if men have a social patch that's wrong they'll just keep the same patch
Right.
women will just like
Mm.
well I just picked up a new patch for this other women I'll just update my social patch and they'll so
Mhm.
it's just
What
kind
was
of keep masking it
the
but
statistic is like, oh, go ahead.
but like the thing is like so like my like I for low key started out from like just like them as just a group of men that I've been keeping. So the idea like we would meet on Fridays and to keep meeting. I even we institute like trying to because a lot of men are also touch starved, so we also make sure like we get hugs in a lot of these guys that come around. But the thing is like our group, like our Discord channel, is that we have like Loki Jam has a massive database of mangas and graphic novels that we recommend to each other. Like we have read, we also have anime on there. Like, hey, these are things when people go like, "What should I watch?" And we go, "Here's the
Right, right,
database.
right.
Look at this massive database. Please add into it." Producer Paul actually like because he loves data, but he only likes data for his personal life. It's weird guy, but amazing but weird guy. And he helps procure and make sure the database stays up to date. But nice.
Yeah.
excited about it and that's usually how we would recommend. Like, I'll be like, I need to talk about this with somebody, so
Right.
you have to watch this or you have to read this because I want to get your
And
impressions
then when you're
of
this
it.
excited, I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
I'm
what was
gonna read
the
it, yeah.
study that most men at 60 have their only friend is their wife?
Yes.
So
Aw.
see,
Women have
oh,
a support group.
that's
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah.
And then and Harry and I have
That's
always
sad.
talked about that because that's part of what we want to do here is like model healthy
male
masculinity
relationships. That's
Mhm.
good.
and male friendships. And so, Harry I've always argued like video games are kind of a problem. He's like, no, this is the thing that guys will use to bring together because it's almost like
Yeah,
a
it
book
can
club.
be, for
It's just a
sure.
tool. It can be
Yeah.
used well or poorly.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Reagan the other day was like, who's your best friend? I don't know if you have a best friend.
You'd
I
be
was
like, you, babe.
well, definitely
It's like, don't
Harry,
say, and don't say me.
Harry, Jeremiah, Aaron.
That's a trick question. You're supposed to say her.
Yeah. Well, she was like, and don't say me.
Yeah,
Oh,
see, I knew she
it's
did
still a
that.
trick question. It's still a trick.
Because
It's
she's
trap.
like, I go see Michaela every month and I have but like, I'm
Mhm.
like, but for me, like going and being with Harry every couple weeks,
Mhm.
like this, like the activity of doing things,
Mhm.
where it's like our
It
book
is more
club.
activity
But you
based
should-
for men.
Yeah.
It's like we sit next to each
Yeah.
other and do this similar thing. Whereas with us, it's more like we're sharing stuff. Like it's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So I think it's more interpersonal. Because I do.
It's
I
like
have
I need to
tell
talk to my
husband
kids. I need to talk about my kids for 20 minutes.
that. Yes.
Yeah, like-
I will sometimes do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I
I,
just
think
have
that
to.
it is self care though. Like, and I like that you're mentioning that men should take part in it because I'm always like, baby, talk to such and such. You get so wrapped up
even the
in your
friends he has
work.
now, like he would try to arrange stuff through you and our other friend. Like they
It
wouldn't even
always
want to
ends up being me.
directly want to
Yeah.
be like, hey, reach out.
I'm like, why don't you just text them?
And it's like, there's always this weird sort of thing where it's like you could just,
but I'm that friend though.
to
Like
be
I'm
a
the
friend,
who
yeah.
will call.
You want a
people I
friend, be a
haven't talked
friend.
to. Absolutely. But I think that also too, men don't probably have on the other hand of that, I don't think that the expectations are as high. So
for men
for maintaining friendships, like you might get a needy friend. Like I don't do needy friends where it's like, well, you didn't call. Like we have lives and stuff, and so you know what I mean. There's some leeway for that.
Stuff falls off.
Absolutely, I think that's kind of understood with men too. Because even if it's been a long time, I'm sure if you called your friend up, they would be like, I haven't heard from you in a while.
I'm glad we talk about this now and things are
Mhm.
changing and we can because I feel like that's one of my favorite things about reading is you see the same problems kind of over and over again.
Yeah.
To me, that's what, because you mentioned history, I love history.
Yeah.
Like to me, because the past is never past. We're still doing the same stuff.
I
Like
historical
human beings.
fiction.
People make jokes about podcasting, but like this has become a huge way
Mhm.
for guys to connect and build relationships. And it's the
Mhm.
core of my friendship groups.
Right.
Sure it is,
Yeah.
for you too. It's a purpose to get together.
Yeah. And the other thing, what I've also noticed, because I'm always trying to get the circle to grow, to get bigger, and I'm always I'm more interacting with more dads now. That I'm becoming more of a
Mhm.
dad. And a lot of the dads I'm noticing are just like women in the past have felt like I feel that I'm letting my family down or doing something that I'm doing something away from the family. And it's just like, it's okay to go off and be yourself.
So-
Well, there's a lot of women groups that are just help them to tell me like it's okay to have self-care, to go off outside of the family, and men just don't have that currently.
Let me echo what you just said, because I went to a men's ministry group about 3 weeks ago on a Tuesday night, and it was 25 men who are all over 50, who were 50 or 60.
Mhm.
Most of them had teenage kids.
Mhm.
All but one was married, just suburban dads.
Mhm.
And half of them felt guilty for being there.
Yep.
They felt, and it was the only outlet that they had to like vent their emotions. It was kind of sad, to be honest.
Mhm.
It made me really appreciate you and all my friends, like where we can talk about, like I could text you yesterday and go like, hey, and you're like, hey, call me if you need me.
Mhm.
These guys didn't have that. And by week 3, there were 8.
Oh.
And so they just they find reasons not to come. But one dad
Yeah.
expressly said, like, I've got 3 kids. One of them is over the top. Like, I feel bad leaving my wife alone,
Mhm.
where she has to carry the load.
Mhm.
Where it's like, dude, you're gonna pop, man, if you don't find some way to get community. I mean, it's just hugely important.
One of the dads we going is because I show his wife that like this is the other men that we hang out with, and just showing them like us all having just being healthy and guys together and when we game and so she helps force him out, like go hang out with them, it's fine, get that heck
when
out
you
of the
you
house.
see a study like last week where it's 63% of men under 20 are single and have no plans to date because they get all of their needs met online. That's an incredibly bad statistic, because what that means is that they're not going out and actually getting face-to-face community. They're not, I mean, if you have no interest in dating, it means that there's some piece of you that is not right. Like you're
not necessarily.
No. Here, let me finish, because I'm right, and you two want to jump on me, but I'm telling you I'm right.
For different reasons.
If you my life, when I was 25, I was one of these guys. I was 300 pounds. I lived in my mom's basement. I had no job. I had no health insurance. I had no interest in almost anything. I wasn't trying, right? And when you're just accepting kind of a hermit lifestyle and not pushing yourself, in your physical life, your mental life, your emotional well-being, your career, like that's what makes you attractive to not just women, but people in general. And when you go, I'm just not going to push, or I'm too uncomfortable, like with these things, like that's a red blinking light on the engine that one of those pieces of your life, your spiritual life, your health, these things have to be in balance. And when I look at men today, I don't see that, especially when you talk to your female friends about their opportunities or for dating. They're like, guys are just shit.
Yeah, that's why people don't want to date.
Right.
Like that's the thing too, because I don't think there's anything wrong. Like I'm not really into dating right now, and it's not because I'm not trying. It's just terrible. It's just.
Well, you're an exceptional person who has like.
Oh, thank you. Let's leave it there.
Yeah. Like
end of story.
I stopped dating too, because and it wasn't that I was in an unhealthy place. It's that I recognized that like I need to get off the treadmill, because I keep hurting myself. I keep hurting other people. Like I need to focus on those areas of my life. And I need to
not everybody
wait
wants
for the
to be
right
coupled.
person.
Like I don't think everybody, because they always say there's somebody for everybody. No, there's not. Like sometimes you're just gonna be single, and that's fine.
There are exceptions, but 63% of men under 20 are not
under
wanting
20.
to be
20
under 30, excuse me.
Under
Yes,
30,
thank
yeah.
you.
But all right, so like the statistic, you're looking at the statistic, and I want you to expand that out. So that was males, right? So like the 30%. Now, when you go to the flip side, the female statistic, what is it? 60% are registered?
I didn't see the
female statistic
side.
is flipped. It's the almost doubled. Most of them are not single, because also the dating world is also different for men and women under the age of 30.
That's true.
Under age of 30, most men unfortunately
are not fun to date.
They're also just shit. They don't have nothing
because of that.
They don't have nothing.
They're not fun to date because
they don't have. They have either a crappy job, so they're working 10 to 12 hours at some place. They have barely any money. They have massive student loans to pay for, and the majority of women are wanting men to pay for everything for their debt, the date, and using them as foodie calls. So
foodie calls.
There's a very toxic mentality with them. So it's like, why do I want to do that? But then again, there's also a massive pool of 30 to 50-year-old men that are dating 20-year-olds, and they're coming in with, well, I've got a car, I have, do you want to go date this guy? All he's got is, Natty Ice and an Xbox. Come hang out with me. Right. I'm gonna go to Blend Bar Cigar. I'll pick you up in the Jag. Who are you gonna hang out with?
I have a sister-in-law who is very bright, very intelligent. She's you two are very similar. She's on a college campus right now, and she's just like, there's nobody intellectually they're not funny, they're not smart.
Damn.
They're a little crazy.
So there was this book it was originally called Mate, and that was What Women Want, and it was born out of the
yeah.
So
because I listened to his podcast, The Mating Ground.
The Mating Ground.
Yeah,
and let me tell you what,
that out pretty well.
Kat, that changed my life because
Good.
It was
and that's why. Can we I'm listening to it right now. I'm re-listening to it. It holds up so well. It holds. I mean, because it's still the same stuff going on.
I'm so excited that
I'm super excited too.
The reality was like I had just gotten divorced. I was kind of like had a couple failed relationships, and I'm like, I just can't meet blah 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 blah. And I'm like, Then I
There's gotta
read
be a better way.
I read that book, which was a response to The Game by Neil Gaiman,
Oh, which was gross.
which was gross, which is the
Yeah.
negging, like
Yeah.
putting you down, but also complimenting
Right.
you.
It's like
to,
that top was so pretty. They didn't have it in your size.
and I'm not. I mean,
It's like you're almost as hot as your friend. Like it was that kind of stuff.
yes, right. It's really
Wildly
gross.
insecure.
Yeah.
Much.
But Tucker Max and evolutionary biologist Jeffrey Miller did this podcast and book that kind of like said the reason you're single is not because women hate nice guys. It's because you're fat, you're lazy, you're broke.
You hate yourself.
You
And
hate
don't see them-
yourself.
you don't see them as
Period.
people.
Like,
that was
yes.
the overarching theme was
Yes.
like you have to engage women as people first.
Right.
Because his advice was like make female friends. Like don't
Yes.
even go in with the idea of like I need to ravish this.
Have
That
I ever
was-
said that
right?
to you?
No,
I
it's a great
mean-
point that I've totally forgotten. That it was like your point of dating should be making friends. And
Yeah.
like some of my best female friends still are people that I went out with that we just it was like
See?
it just we connected, but it wasn't this
Right.
was not my person
Yeah.
I was gonna marry, right?
Yeah.
But and they have become like, when we go out of town, my friend Michelle, we exchange each other's, cat duties, right? Like
That's what's up. It's,
You know?
and I encourage Kat with that too. I'm always like, you need more like male platonic friends. And I think that when we engage each other, like you're saying, like with no real expectations, like it should just because we have genitals that are opposite does not mean they need to connect at any point in time. Like, why not? Let's just engage each other as people. Like, what do you think is interesting?
I would like
What do
that.
you-
are
I
you
just
low
don't
key
get
calling
that.
cat an incel?
I mean,
It's
it's
pronounced
voluntary.
femcel.
Maybe it's
Oh, it's
femcel.
Femcel?
Yeah, it's pronounced femcel.
it's voluntary.
For sure. But
Right.
But just in general, like I think I got a gift of having like two brothers. Like I had built-in platonic male relationships, so I wasn't like starved for this male attention. I saw how disgusting guys can be. I hear the stuff they can talk about.
Her brothers are pretty gross.
But on the other side, I know how wonderful they can be too. So
Yeah.
like it's hard when you hear women saying really shitty things about men all of the time. When you're like,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I know men that are great who take
Well,
care of
I
their
think
families. Let
my-
me finish.
I'm
'cause you're not
sorry, because
saying-
I'm gonna agree with you.
okay, you can do that.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I think that there's some value there when you are prioritizing, platonic relationships because you learn so much about the opposite sex and you really realize, I mean, at the end of the day, we want the same things. Sometimes it's in a different way, you know what I mean? Almost
Yeah.
like I'm not to be corny about like love languages, but everybody takes in things differently. So I think when you approach somebody just as a person first, that's gonna be,
that totally that book and that approach totally dating became fun. And I went on like
Yeah,
150
as it
first
should
dates and it
be.
was not about sex. It was
do
It
I
was
like
just
you? Do you
fun,
like me?
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what were you gonna
And
say to support my point?
I was just gonna say
Tell me why I'm right.
I
Yeah.
feel like the key for male-female relationships is you just have really low expectations because men and women are just very different. Like men are they just do such weird things and I don't know how they get there. And it's
Wow.
just so frustrating. A lot of times it's like, you know what? I think I'm gonna curl up at home with a good book.
But see,
Yeah.
if you have more platonic male relationships,
Yeah.
you understand some
I
of that
don't
stuff
feel like
maybe
that's
more.
my fault though.
I'm not saying it's no fault.
I think you
There's
made
no how to
my,
solve that
I went I was
problem.
out
There's
with
no fault.
I was out with a girl once and she goes, I can tell you have a sister.
You
'Cause it-
just know. You
because
just can feel it. It's
yeah.
such
She's
a
like,
gift. Honestly.
You treat me well, and
Like a
guys that
regular
don't
ass
have
person.
sisters or you have a sister, you treat women very well.
I have 4 sisters.
Wow, you treat them 4 times.
I didn't
as good
realize
as
it
the
was
normal
4.
person.
Do you
I
have
have
a
4.
lot.
any brothers?
One. I have 2 brothers.
Okay.
I have 2 brothers.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just it's a rare gift, and I always appreciated that. I always noticed like women who aren't around men that they have platonic relationships. It's a different energy you're giving off that you're not even aware of sometimes, and it's the same on the other side. I
Yeah.
feel like.
I will say because I weirded even my girlfriends out because I'm willing to have platonic relationships with other because I'm used to having those. My current wife was just like, I can't believe you're hanging out with these women. It's like, why? They're just my friends, and it took
It's like,
a
what
while.
do these hussies want?
Reagan kind of has that where Reagan's like, you talk to so many girls. I'm like, but these are
Yeah.
people. These are platonic. That listen, we weren't having sex when I was single and available. We're
Right.
not. They're
We're not
definitely
now.
not going to do that now.
Well,
Okay,
the
I
thing
can't use
hear
that.
from men- but a thing I often hear from men too, and why they have anxiety about their, wife or girlfriend having male friends is that they're just waiting for it. Because it was on some podcast the other day where they were like, call your male friend now and tell him you broke up with me and see what he says. You saw that? And it was like, you finally left that, and I was like, yeah, it's it can be that, but sometimes I don't know. To me, I'm too old now, I think.
Some women are like that. So for April Fool's Day, my wife did that on Facebook and put it like we broke up, and I instantly had 2 female friends call me, and it was just like, oh my god.
You gotta let them go. Gotta let them go.
That is maybe that's the flip side of the coin. They know how great you are, but I mean, at the same time, you still have control over whether or not that is. So that's all I'm saying. You still have the autonomy to say, okay.
But like,
you know what never lets you down? Books. Wow.
True,
except sometimes they do. Sometimes they're terrible.
I was like, yeah, I've had terrible books.
What's the last book you had to just put down? It was like, I can't finish it. I can't finish this. This is just terrible.
I'd have to look at my Goodreads.
Because do you walk out of movies? I just learned there are some people who don't walk out of movies, if they're bad. Everybody should know this. If you're sitting through a movie and you hate it, you can get up and leave and get your money back.
I will get up, refill my popcorn, and try to give that movie a chance.
Okay,
but
you're a Spartan. You're like, I'm.
But yeah, I have gotten up and walked out of movies.
Do you get the money back?
What from? Oh yeah, I usually just ask if I can watch a different movie.
You're a nice guy here.
I read the intro and maybe the first chapter. There's a lot of books that I'm at 25% on or 10% on.
Okay.
That I'm not going back to. If I finish a book, it's 4 or 5 stars. Unless it's really short, but yeah. All right. Well, we should start wrapping up. Tell people where they can follow you both. Shameless self-promotion time.
I think you should do it because this is who's going to be answering you if you reach out.
That's probably true, you guys. You guys can reach out to us. I would say IG is a good place to start. The Fat Podcast, also on YouTube. We have a link tree on both of those. You guys click that. Everything that we're attached to. I think you can find us just about anywhere except for SoundCloud. So just search the Fat Podcast, guys. Yeah, holler at us. Let us know if there's some stuff you want us to review. Come over our way.
Harry asked me what episode should I start with. I of course said mine, and then I said Dion. But what would you recommend if you're gonna recommend the podcast?
We reviewed X-Men Unlimited. I can't remember what the number was, but
when you recommend that one. Because that series I've made fun of for years.
I'm going to get your information and I'll send you the link to that one. Make it super easy for you.
For years,
yeah.
It was me tolerating her talking about it.
They had sad Cyclops on it, Which
it was it's a good one though. I can't.
No, I got it.
Okay, please send me. I want to see a nerd make fun of another nerd. That'd be great.
Yes.
It's
nerd fight. All right, Harry. Final thoughts.
Let's see. One thing I wanted to do is say that the thing that helps me go through and chug through books is because I get up at 4 a.m. every day, and that's my time that I get up and read. So I can easily get the dish, either unload or load the dishwasher, start coffee, and just sit down on my couch or go in my room and just read a book. It's easier. Because the world's asleep, everything's like that. And then I can drink coffee and go somewhere and leave the room because I, probably would have been divorced if I sat and tried to read a book in the bedroom because, with the light being on, my wife wants to turn this light off.
I always the writers are always like, I get up at 5:30 and have 2 uninterrupted hours, and I'm like, great. But I can't do it. I gotta sleep.
Yeah. I
gotta work too.
It's magical. Then I usually hit so I'm at LA Fitness and I'll go to hot yoga early in the morning too.
Right.
It's
okay, Harry, you're super healthy. We get it.
He is. He's very well balanced. He's a very good friend because he's a good constant. He's a good dad. He's a good husband.
I'm telling you, gotta have something to aspire
He's always
to.
like, this is the moral thing that you should have done. Now apologize to your co-host.
That's right. You do. We do. We need that.
I try to be.
That's honorable. Trying is important.
All right. Well, if you like this podcast, then please share it. That is the best thing that you can do for any content creator. We thank you so much for listening here to We Are Libertarians on the Chris Spangle Show, and we will see you again in a couple weeks.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Okay.
Wow.